Good morning, Hope Church.
Good morning.
I am so delighted to be here with you and to be with people that are family and friends with me. I put family and friends together because you know how that there are some family that become there's some friends that become your family. So that's the family. We got to acquainted with Pastor Dan and Pastor Laura Lee a number of years ago, loved their family. So it's a delight to be here with Carissa and Chuck and Tricia. It's like it was a delight to have them in classroom, but you know, it wasn't just a classroom. I adopted them, and they adopted me. So I'm so, again, delighted for them to be my family and to be here together with you. I've prayed for Hope Church. Prayed for you over the last couple of years as you have been kind of planting and believe that God has big things for you, but that God is already doing big things. Because God is looking at Jocelyn, and God is looking at Trish and Rosa, and it's like, okay, He's wanting to do, again, things in our lives right here now. I'm so excited that you have been engaging in this series, and just want to, just applaud your willingness to kind of dig in, because Christianity and following after Jesus means that we live in a real world, and there's a lot of stuff. Life can be very, very hard. There are losses, there's trauma, there is so much, and that you've been tackling that head on because God does that for us, and that He is not just wanting your behavior to be a certain way. He is wanting to join with you on your everyday and be a part of your journey and bring healing and grace and transformation right where you are. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about a healing journey, and would remark to you that I just traveled here from Springfield, Missouri. It takes some doing to get here from Springfield, Missouri, and ended up in Charlotte, and then kind of came into Boston then, and very much have enjoyed it. I was thinking I did not bring enough warm clothes. I was freezing yesterday, but it was again, had such a wonderful time being with your pastors, and enjoyed that very much. But I brought some baggage with me. Anybody when you travel?
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody bring too much stuff? All right, I'm with my people. It's like, isn't it? Well, I was noting to you that we bring all kinds of things with us in our travels. Now, of course, I'm going to be speaking to you, so I brought a Bible. It's always good to have a Bible with us when we. That's it. Chuck and I traveled in Italy one time, and he didn't have his Bible with him when he got up to preach. He told us, though, that he had hidden the word in his heart. So I told him that one of our other professors, Dr. Bonnie Jenkins, was just reminded me to tell Chuck to use his Bible, bring his Bible. So I also, along the way, because when we talk about sometimes our baggage, we carry things with us. And you've been talking about things that we carry. And some of us, we carry in things like, we carry in depression. We carry in life. There are good reasons for depression. I mean, things that are just not working right in our brain and the brain chemistry. But when we look at circumstances and we look at losses and all that we have, it's like those are real. We've got, more depression. It's like, loss. Okay, so often at the base, he's like, loss is a lot of things. We're going to talk about that. Loneliness. Oh, we find ourselves as like, okay, that could be a biggie for us. Failure. Those can start piling up for us, can't they? Death. Okay, some of our losses are because of death. The death of people that we love, but it's also death of dreams and death of hope and all of that. And Trish, I noticed you brought in a bag too. What did you carry into? What did you carry into your bag?
Today, I also brought in loss.
trauma. Anger.
Okay. We can be carrying a whole bunch of stuff in. And I'm just suggesting to you that we can make some choices about what we carry out with us. And in this series, I hope that some things have been explained to you, some things have been affirmed for you. There are times when we're just like, I'm not making this up. You know, I'm not just being weak. I'm not just being a wimp. I'm not just needing to suck it up. There are real things that are going on within me, within my life. I carry abuse and trauma, and I carry these things with me. And I hope that as you've listened, that there has, again, just been this sense of, okay, this is a safe place, and these are safe people that I can share my baggage, my stuff with, and I can find the way then of healing. And to note, that's what God wants for us. When I was sitting over there, I was just mindful of like, okay, if we could have a picture of God physically right here, it would kind of be something maybe like this. That would be him trying to doing the hug around all of us, because that's where God is. God likes to be this close to you, right here. Because it's like, he likes to kiss your face. And it's like God is right there in with us. And a reminder, it's like our story is not done. So carrying some of these. And one of the things that was being repeated there was loss. And I want to talk a little bit about loss. And as noted before, loss is not just one thing. You know, sometimes loss has very much death. And we experience that, the separation of people that we so love, as well as sometimes people that, like, I still had some unfinished business there with individuals. I mean, I thought there would always be a chance. I thought there'd be another conversation. Sometimes we carry those losses. But there are losses of things like our material things. If you've ever, again, you've lost a job, or you've lost a home, you know, you've lost financial security, you've lost, and you know how devastating that can be. You've maybe lost some health or mobility. It's like you get older, and it's like, wow, things are slowing down. This is a regular occurrence for me right now. We lose connections. It's like sometimes just in a divorce or in a breakup, it's like, it's not just that one relationship, it's relationships with other people. Who gets custody of your friends? You know, it's like, who is it? It's like, okay, there are those occasions when there's that breakup and you think, I miss their whole family, not just that one individual. I carry those kind of losses with me. Sometimes I lose me. I'm not quite sure who I am anymore. It's like I knew who I was when I had that job. I knew who I was when everything was going well. I thought of myself. Here I am, and thinking like, you know, I am this, and I'm in the middle of a dream, and I'm living it, and now something changes. I'm no longer the parent like I thought I would be. I'm no longer the spouse like I thought I would be. I'm no longer employed as I thought I would be in this. Sometimes our purpose is a lost thing. And I would remind you that grief is an adaptive response. Okay, grief isn't something, you know, it's not just something we need to get over, we need to just buck up. It's like we grieve things that happen to us very, very suddenly that we didn't prepare for. And we grieve for things that are expected. An empty nest, it's like we can expect that, but oh boy, God, there are those moments when it's like, the pool is a lot deeper, you know, in that. And there are occasions when we experience different losses that are really hard to talk about. Somebody else may not quite understand it the way in literature, it's like, you know, we talk about ambiguous losses, those that are hard to put your finger on, and something that somebody else may not understand, or something where other people might bring some judgment to it. It's like there was abortion or something, and it's like, and you feeling lost in regards with that, and finding that people aren't very sympathetic. Or sometimes there's a miscarriage, and it's like, there's not like a Hallmark card for that necessarily. There are losses that we carry with us. And grief then is something you've been learning about the biopsychosocial spiritual piece of things, that God created us in his image. Well, God has a form, so we have a form. You know, God is emotional God. Does the person next to you have emotions? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't like the ones they share with us, do we? It's like in that we are bio, we are psycho. Now, some of you have been waiting all your life for somebody to affirm that for you. you are psycho in that it's like each of us carry with us, you know, our own means of perceiving the world. You know, it's all a little bit different. How many of you have ever told a story in your family and a brother or sister says, no, that's not how it was? And of course, you know you are right. I'm the oldest child, so I know that I'm right because I was older, so any of those stories, I tell my younger sisters that. So here we are in this, and it's like the psycho, it's like, and how I uniquely, you know, look at the world, and do things, think things, make choices. Well, that's the psycho side of things. The social, God created us as social beings. He was a social being. He says, let us make man in our image. So God creates us, and it's like he breathes into us. So this Imago Dei, this image of God, which is good because there are moments when it's like, wow, I am so much nicer like today than what I thought I would be. I was more patient. And we know that it's the image of God, not just from then, but what he continually kind of speaks through us. But we can experience such loneliness, and we can experience such joys in that social. But we also know that a very, very large proportion of our hurts and wounds and the scars we have come from like relational woundings and the things that we carry with us then. Remind you that when we experience psychological, social pain, again, in a breakup, or again, just feeling devastated and lost, it's like I can't find myself anymore, that our body experiences that with us. Again, God in this holistic kind of means of creating and us being, again, a soul, but in this body. It's like you've got right in the front of your brain, you've got this prefrontal cortex. And a lot of your thinking, what you think about you, how you make choices, has to do with different brain parts up here. So you've got the amygdala and hippocampus, and you've got all these different parts that are interacting with each other. And you've got a part of that prefrontal cortex called the anterior cingulate cortex. And it is activated when you think about you. And when you are experiencing hurt and sadness and loss, who are you thinking about? You. So this area stays very, very activated. And then when we're experiencing hurt, and would note to you, in your brain, so Jocelyn, we'll just pick you. If we could cut open your head, look in your brain right now. Thank you for your volunteer. That in that, what we could find there in your anterior, that as you experience physical pain, that your brain, when you experience psychological pain, it looks the same. It's like, here's this release of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So again, when you get, anybody feel stressed, you know physical, what that feels like? Your heart's like, okay, and that, and we're running to get somewhere. Physically, that responds, but our brain responds that way. When you have a relational pain, because somebody in your life that you love so dearly has hurt you. Okay, last time in the hotel, I'm hearing this song going, who do you think you are, running around leaving scars? I'll know the song. Thank you for recognizing it. Or at least faking it. Okay? But I was like, yes, that is so. It's like, ouch. We have people in our life that it seems like, I got this scar. It's like from family or for friends and in that. And again, there's this release of different types of hormones and all in that because your body's trying to take care of you. And you've got a part of your brain that's called the basal ganglia. And interesting, the basal ganglia is responsible for looping behavior and thinking. Okay, the basal ganglia is why I can keep talking and I can walk across the room. As I get older, this is harder to do, just saying. But in this, it loops behavior, so I don't have to think about right, left, right, left, right, left. Okay, aren't you glad you can do those things without having to really, really think about them?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the problem sometimes though, because when we're experiencing hurt, and we've got those stress hormones are raging, and our brain is kind of like thinking about all of these, and we've got the parts of my brain, we've got the hippocampus that's accessing different memories as well as forming memories at the same time. So I've got this, I'm wrapping kind of like hurt around this. I'm speaking it to myself. There's a cognitive piece, there's an emotional piece, but there's a physical piece on all of this. And the basal ganglia starts looping this. So we think a happy thought, think a happy thought. Come on, be like Dory. It's like, find a happy place, do something. Or like, this is not working. There is no Hakuna Matata in this right here, right now. I just can't. It's like, just get over it. Just kind of think something else. And we're finding it's like, my body, I feel like I'm fighting against my own body, my own brain, and this is real. Okay, so look at the person next to you and say, the struggle is real. Okay, I would suggest to you, when wearing the masking and the social distancing, not only is that just socially difficult, when we need connection. You know that when you connect with an individual, there are neurotransmitters released again in your system. Oxytocin. And men, you have a very special one. Not only do you have a release of oxytocin, you have a release of vasopressin. This is so that you'll move towards people. And dads, when you've held that little baby for the first, it's like, ooh, okay, something happens. Now mom maybe is like, okay, mom's been growing this one. I'm like, okay, dad. Okay, I got to talk with Pastor Dan and Pastor Laura Lee last night. But they were both, they're just talking about how they love their kids. It's like, isn't that kind of crazy about the kids? It's like oxytocin being released. So here we are, it's like our whole system is kind of geared to connect, but our system is geared to take care of us and to receive messages. And so when I'm depressed or when I'm anxious, when I'm experiencing that trauma, it's like my body has kind of, it's forming memories around things. It's releasing when I think about a memory of a loss. It's like, here comes all of this stuff. Here comes all the emotions that I've thought about. Here comes other people that are a part of this. Here comes, so all of this stuff that just can kind of keep circulating. It would note during, again, COVID with the masks, okay, what does your face look like under your mask? You know, sometimes we're smiling and all, but a lot of times our face just looks like this. Right? So what message does my brain get from my face? Because my brain is constantly reading my face. So it's like, okay, Jocelyn, facial feedback theory. Here we go. So here we end this. It's like my face is telling my brain, oh, I'm not real excited. I'm kind of sad. I might feel lonely. It's like, okay, but at least I can clean my teeth without anybody noticing. Okay, there's that. But it's like, it's just hard. So sometimes that's that message of that. And sometimes some of us have been wearing masks before we ever wore a mask. They're kind of faking. It's like, okay, I've got to do this. So then we find, here we are with our losses. And I would suggest losses unique to the individual. I mean, some individuals in losses and hurts, they find that I've got to be with people. And some are like, I just need to hibernate. I need to get away. Some it's like, oh, I need to just cry. And some it's like, I haven't cried at all. And sometimes we look at other individuals and they're like, well, they're not very sad, or they're not doing this right, or I need to help because they're not doing it the way that I do. And like family members, it's like, okay, there's that person in your family that doesn't respond like you think that they might. And that, again, that kind of understanding that our grief is very, very unique to us. And we've got to let kind of individuals kind of have that, their own kind of experiencing with that. C.S. Lewis wrote, he says, I never knew that loss felt so much like fear. Sometimes that kind of sense of like, it's just creeping up at me and I'm not quite sure what to do with this. And some of you have found that sometimes in your losses, that, you know, sometimes you pull near to God and sometimes it just feels like God is pulled way far away. And it seems like really, really difficult to find him. But when you do see the face of God when you're hurting, it's oftentimes his face looks a little bit different. It's like I get a little bit closer to God then. When my brother-in-law died, I never anticipated that suicide would be a part of my family's experience. And especially when it's like I love him. He was one of my best friends and mentorees. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. How can that be? And I was so angry and so sad. And I just got mad at God. I said, I am just not even going to talk to you. And then I go a few minutes and I'm like, and God, I'm just not talking to you. I am so mad at you. I can't believe you didn't stop this. I can't believe, I'm mad. I'm not talking to you, God, because I don't know where God, you're just like, okay. Some of you know what that's like. I think sometimes we pray and sometimes we non-pray. It's like, that's not really a prayer. It's how I'm in the non-praying kind of. It's just like staying in communication here. And I had this kind of dream. And in the dream, I was kind of walking down, like in our chapel kind of thing there at school. But as I was walking down the aisle, I felt like Jesus was at the end. And he turned and he just walked towards me. And it's like, as he walked, I was like, because I was crying, thinking like, this is yuck. And as he was walking, it's like he was crying too. And it's like he just walked towards me, and then he just hugged me. He didn't say anything. He didn't say it's better. He didn't defend himself or defend me. He just joined me. And I understood what it was, and when the psalmist would write, the Lord is near to those with a broken heart. The God, you come near. And in our disorganized state of our brain and our body and all, in the midst of our trauma and in our losses, and then again, sometimes it's no wonder that we're anxious and that we're depressed and that we're carrying some of this with us. And again, that our body is carrying all of this, and our thoughts go kind of awry, and our behavior isn't maybe what it should be. Because it's like, I just have to do what I best can in this moment. And I love the story in John 11, and I like Pastor Dan that you read John 12, so I'll just kind of take us back a minute. But in John 11, there is the story of Jesus arriving in Bethany because Lazarus has died. And he comes to see Mary and Martha, his sisters, and Jesus is arriving here to find out that Lazarus has died. And Lazarus has died, and that people are kind of speaking to him. He's noting, and so here I am in John 11 and 17. Jesus arrives at Bethany. He's told Lazarus has been in the grave for 4 days, and many of the people had come to console Mary and Martha, the sisters. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you what you ask. And Jesus said, your brother will rise again. Yes, Lord, he will on the last days. And Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha? She's going, yes, I believe you are Messiah. You are the Son of God. And then she went and got Mary, and she told Mary. She pulled him aside from all the other mourners and said, hey, the teacher's here and wants to see you. So Mary comes to Jesus. So Jesus is outside the village where Martha had met him, and when people, when they see that Mary is leaving the house, they go along with her. They followed her, and when Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. Okay, some of us have done those if only prayers. When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people, it's like he was deeply troubled, and he said, where have you put him? And they said, Lord, come and see. And then Jesus wept. The people who were standing nearby said, see how much he loved him. But some said, this man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? Jesus was angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across the entrance. Roll the stone away, Jesus told them. But Martha, the dead man's sister, said, Lord, he's been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible. I appreciate the practical person here. Jesus said, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? So they rolled the stone aside, and Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, I thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. But I said it out loud for the sake of all of these people standing here, so that they will believe that you sent me. Then Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and his feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. And Jesus told them, unwrap him and let him go. I want to note to you 5 things that Jesus does for us, again, in our losses, in our grieving, in our hurt places. And number 1 is that Jesus brings his presence to wherever we are. Jesus arrives on scene. And it's like, Jesus, he's constantly arriving on scene. I hope you are experiencing that. And maybe we're in a place right now where God is here right now. So he wants you not to just be a past experience, but as like a current one right now, today. But we find Jesus shows up. They're in the middle of a storm, and Jesus arrives on scene. We find the woman at the well. It's like, here's a woman that had been, lots of abuse, lots of trauma. She was on her 5th husband, and the man she was living with wasn't her husband. And she's coming to the well, at the hour of the day in the middle of the afternoon, when people don't come to the well in the middle of the afternoon. It's too hot then. Maybe hard to think about being hot right now. But in that this woman is like, okay, because, it's not nice. People don't like me. People are mean. They're going to think I'm going to, take their husband or do something. It's like, they don't think really, really well of me. And Jesus comes and meets her right then. Paul talks about constantly, it's like in the time when he was flogged and he was stoned and he was like, all these bad things would happen to him and God would appear. And it's like this sense of God showing up. So in this, Jesus brings his presence right to where we are. And notice that Mary and Martha, is like Jesus comes to Martha, and Martha comes right to Jesus. Mary, it took her a little while. But Jesus was on his way then to Mary, to Martha, to Mary. And the second thing is that Jesus gives us permission to feel. I always love John 11:35, not just because it's the shortest verse in the Bible, but as a kid, I was like, oh, okay, we had to try to memorize a number of verses, and I'm like, okay, let me find the shortest ones in that. But it's like, ooh, Jesus wept. It's like, in that, what does that mean? And all the people that were looking at Jesus assumed that he was weeping because he so loved Lazarus, and he so felt the loss and felt the grieving of Mary and Martha in this. And Jesus gave him permission. There are times when sad things happen to us, losses happen, and we kind of wonder, it's like, is it okay for me to is it unchristian, or does it seem to be like I'm not trusting God or something if I feel sad? And that's, the reality is no. Jesus gives you permission to grieve. He gives you permission to feel. Okay, it's what we do in that. And notice that, again, Mary and Martha was a little bit different in the feeling, because he gives you permission to feel as you feel. Okay, your feelings are real. Okay, not always true. So Pastor Tricia there quoted me on that when she spoke at her mental health. I'm like, okay, there's that good. Your feelings are real. They're real information. They're things, again, a feeling isn't just like a fly that buzzes in and pops in your head. It's like your feelings have to do with, it's like you've got a whole brain networking taking place, so that when you're experiencing hurt and when you're experiencing anger, that is like there's something real is going on within that. Now, the reason that I'm angry, the reason that I feel the hurt, what I tell myself about that isn't always, it's like I have some choice in that. And again, Trish talked about cognitive reframing, that sometimes, and I would suggest to you that a lot of our walk with Christ is all about kind of reframing. It's like God is rewriting our story. And you get to be a part of it, and that part of rewriting the story too. Your story is not done. So here we are with this permission to feel it all, and then they get that difference there. But notice again, Jesus brings people with him. it's like not only, there was people there that were consoling Mary and Martha, some of whom might have been like professional mourners. But Jesus brings some of the friends with him. He's got Peter and James and John, and he brings people around. It wasn't just Jesus leaving and heading over there. It's like, no, guess what? When trauma is happening, when there's loss, we gather together. We bring the family. We bring the friends. It's like we got to show up. So it's like it matters that people come. Jesus said in Matthew 11, he says, come to me, all you. Okay, so here we are. This is all y'all. So I'm from Missouri right now. It's still funny in that. It's like, okay, it's like all of us, we're coming and all in there. And some people, though, it's like some of the people have a more integral role because some of the people are going to be partners with you. And in this, here's Jesus arriving. He's going to do a miracle. He's going to step to the place of death. And he's going to speak life because he constantly does that for us. But there's specific individuals. We need some help. Some stuff's got to take place here. We got to move some stuff out of the way. So he calls on the people that's their job is going to be like, ooh, roll that stone out of the way. Okay, sometimes it's your pastor, it's your friend, it might be the counselor kind of thing, is helping to roll a little bit of the stone out of the way there, but it's because it's like, okay, so we can get to that stinky dead place. And there's that which is in there too. And some of the partners in that, again, moving the stone, knowing that so often our healing journey is a journey. There's some things that happen and are immediate, but there's so much of what we do in our walk with Christ and in that it's going to be an ongoing process. So sometimes I showed you some things that might be in my baggage. I would note to you that when I'm feeling my lonely, when I'm feeling my loss, when I call and I talk to a Carissa or a Trish, and it's like we're both of us bearing it. It's like it changes. It changes everything. It's like, okay, we partner. It's like, I mean, Pastor Laura Lee, it's like, well, we got to talk to you about this. And it's like when we talk about it, and it's like the loss that I was feeling, it's like, okay, when I talked about it, it's like, okay, my brain is like, here's all the memories, and I'm sharing about it, and I'm talking, the emotion is there, and all of the thinking is there, and some of that relational kind of pain, I'm sharing that. And then as she listens, okay, as my partner listens, and it's like, something changes in that a little bit. Because it's like, okay, there's a little bit of the weight of that, kind of lifts off a little bit. And now around that same memory, that same hurt, now I'm putting a little bit, something positive around that. There's somebody who listened and cared and believed with me. And so when I'm down the road and I think about that memory again, it's like, that's so, but it really helped when I told Pastor Laura Lee about that. I was like, okay, that helped. And maybe it's like maybe we journal. You got some good ideas of things to do during the mental health thing. Maybe I wrote some things down, and writing it down is like, that helped me to see that. And, maybe it's like when I'm experiencing the hurt, maybe I made some different kind of choices there, and I called somebody, or I didn't just eat all the Oreos or something there. It's like, I did something different in that. It's like, okay. So now I wrap that around it. And so I'm in a place where I'm reframing, but I'm also, a few years ago, we, because of, a lot of the technology now, we know a lot more about what's happening in the neuropsychology, neurobiology of your brain. And one of the things that we, kind of learned is the hippocampus is a part of your brain where, again, a lot of memory kind of making and starts, it's kind of like a center, and then it's kind of stored in different parts of your brain. But we discovered the hippocampus, and for anybody that's Percy Jackson fan, it's like, okay, wait a minute, we also know that the hippocampus is the water horse. If you don't know who Percy Jackson is, that's okay. But we also learned that the hippocampus is the place in your brain where new brain cells are generated. So we're like, okay, in the very place where I'm storing the old, here's the new. Well, then you look in the Bible and it's like, wait a minute, Romans 12:2. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Wow, apparently God meant something deeper
than what we even understood there. It's like, ooh, in that place where it's like, got him. So I'm talking and I'm sharing about the old and the hurt and that. And it's like, in that very, very place, something new takes place. Something new, something is generated. So as we talk about our hurts here, and we come together and we share, it's like, listen, I failed. And it's like, okay, we join with you. We're glad that you share. We believe in you. We love you. We listen to you. It's like there's hope. There's connection in this place. So there's the partners. I would just note to you that it's important to look at the people in your life and to correctly assign them their particular kind of role when you're in a hurting place. Because sometimes we look at people and think like, I don't have anybody that I can really, really talk to. And sometimes in counseling, I'll note to people, it's like, you kind of know that there are some people in your life that are like doers. That is like, they might not be real sympathetic, but by golly, if you need somebody to come and help you mow your lawn, or they'll pick up the kids, or they'll like bring you some food or something, it's like, okay, the doer. It's like, okay. And I can feel good. That matters when somebody does something that helps. There are some people that are like, okay, again, I'm not maybe do the deep sharing, but if I just need, it's like, I can Netflix binge with this person. This person just makes me laugh. It's like that respite person that's like, yes, I get coffee with this person. It's like, ooh. Okay, and there are those that I'm like, guess what? You got some people in your life that are listeners. And sometimes you might need to tell the listener people, it's like, okay, I just need you to listen. Okay, and then especially sometimes you might want the women in your life to like cue you in. I'm going to tell you this, but I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. So like, just tell us what you want from us. Okay, let me be primed there. So who are the listener people? Who are the core people? Because those people, there are some of those individuals that can do a lot of those things. So identify where those people are. Okay, there's also people in your life that are toxic. Right? Okay, you might be related to these toxic people. And Glory, it's like, Jesus, thank you for the sandpaper, people in my life. But in that, and this Lord, I don't know why it's me. Why do I have to have? Why does that have to be part of my story? But it's like sometimes it's identifying. It's like, okay, I've got to make sure when I'm with that family member or with that person, that it might help if I got somebody else with me, or I've got to reduce time. Or maybe that toxic person can be a doer person. It may not be. So again, kind of correctly assigning the regular position of that then. Okay, the last thing I just want to mention about this